Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the final week of my little Japan travel vlog. We are now on week 4, my final week in Japan, and this week will span the final week I spent traveling to the central area of Japan. So that includes Osaka, Kyoto, and Kobe, and some other miscellaneous tourist destinations. Apologies for the gap in videos recently. I spent March working hard on a visual novel for a game jam. I made a post about it, so if you're interested, do check it out. It would mean a lot to me. Me and my friends worked pretty hard on it and managed to make what I'm relatively happy with fan game. So I hope you enjoyed if you do end up playing it. I try to write it so that anyone could enjoy it, regardless of whether you know the source material or not. But our day starts in, well, not much pictures really, but it starts in Narita Airport at 4 a.m. I was taking a flight from Narita over to Osaka, since tickets are cheaper, and then taking the bullet train, and yeah, that was the main reason really. I wasn't exactly too thrilled with paying a bunch for the Shinkansen. I've already taken the Shinkansen a couple times for this trip, so I was satisfied. The flight to Osaka was pretty short, an hour or so, maybe 2 hours. Narita Airport sucks. I'm never going there ever again if I can avoid it. Arriving in Osaka, I checked into my Appa hotel. I was staying, I believe, in the Nanba area. I can pull up a map here. I was staying near Higobashi, so a little south of Osaka Station. I arrived at the airport, after which I took one of the many shuttle buses from the airport over to Osaka Station and then down to my hotel to check in. Check-in was a little earlier or a little later than when I arrived, since my flight was quite early. So I was able to leave my luggage at the airport and just explore around the Higobashi area a little bit. There was a cool park I was able to check out, another rose garden, apparently part of the 2006 World Rose Convention. And this was near the Appa Hotel. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, I walked over to the Utsubo Park Rose Garden near Higobashi. And I was just able to, walk around there, and seeing as I had a lot of time, since I got there really early in the morning, I decided to say, hey, why not? And I went over to Osaka Castle. A short train ride from Higobashi. You can walk it, but it's a little bit of a walk. Osaka Castle is one of the many historic monuments in Osaka, and it was quite the tourist destination. They had a couple of paid tours, but you were also able to walk it. Having been in Japan for almost a month now, and having been to quite a few castles and ruins and stuff, it was pretty cool, as are most places, but it was very touristy. The actual castle itself, there was a rather large queue and you had to pay to go in. So me being the frugal, lazy, impatient guy I am, I chose just to take some pictures outside. The weather was lovely though, and great for a stroll, and just, taking in the vibes, seeing the local scenery, and as well as seeing Osaka Castle from the outside. There are plenty of different little panels that provide you historical information. There's also a couple of moats surrounding Osaka Castle, and it's basically, you can consider it a little walk in the park almost. So, spent some time there, after which I walked around, and I took one of these underground passages, underground walkways, and had some katsu because I hadn't actually had that much katsu while in Japan, and I was craving it, so for a relatively reasonable 1600 yen, I was able to get a pretty decent katsu. Katsu with miso, teishuku set meal. Now, there's probably cheaper options, but you take what you can get when you're out and about. Walked around, took various pictures of monuments before heading over to walking near to Dotonbori. Dotonbori is basically an entertainment district, if you will, in Osaka, and it is also famous to me because it appears in Yakuza 0, or the Yakuza series, known as Sotonbori. It's where Majima's from, but the real-life Dotonbori, it's comparable to Kabukicho in Tokyo, but I'd say whereas Kabukicho, you might get solicited by weird people, Dotonbori is far too touristy to have that, I think. It's mostly small bars and stuff, but it's also a very tourist-packed place full of a lot of different places where you can get food and stuff. There was a big takoyaki place, and you'll see a lot of takoyaki being sold here because takoyaki is there's Osaka-style takoyaki is a big thing here. As you can see in the pictures, Dotonbori was very packed. Like, censoring it is kind of impossible. And this wasn't even in the middle of the night. This was around 4 or 5 p.m. So, Dotonbori, there's a little river running right through, so there's all kinds of little shops along the river and on like a secondary level almost. And a bridge that you can walk by. It was really funny walking across that bridge because I vividly remember Yakuza 0, Majima learns how to do the breaker style on these bridges. So, it was a really cool place. I didn't really want to spend too much money here because it did feel a little tourist trappy, if you will. But it was a cool place. They also had some cosplay lounges, which I found kind of surprising. And it's not exactly a very big street, really. I was able to walk from one end to the other in about 10 minutes, including the crowds. And then it's basically 2 small streets that you can walk from one end to another, along with the middle river you can walk along. I did, of course, end up getting some takoyaki, since it is kind of an Osaka specialty, if you will. And there were a couple different signs I took pictures of, and just kind of took in the vibes, really. I wanted to see, everyone says Osaka is a different vibe compared to Tokyo, and I wanted to kind of see what it was. After that, it was a little bit of a longer walk down from Dotonbori and near Namba. Namba is the area, Osaka Namba, it's where Dotonbori is kind of located, just a little north of it. Walking down from Namba all the way down to the Osaka Denden Town, Nipponbashi Denden Town. So a bit southeast of Namba. It was a 20-25 minute walk, but it wasn't too bad. Walked down to Namba, to Nipponbashi, because that was where Denden Town was. Now, for those who don't know, Nipponbashi Denden Town is basically smaller Akihabara in Osaka. Me being the weeb I am, I wanted to check it out. I got some hot yuzu lemonade that my Oshi said she likes to drink when she feels a little sick or wants something lemony in Japan. It was quite tasty, but I'm worried how much sugar was in it. I checked out Denden Town, and it was your anime shops. It was getting late, so things were starting to close, but I was really browsing. Saw Ray, and here in Denden Town is another Super Potato. If you'll recall from my previous Japan vlogs, Super Potato is a retro game shop, which happens to have a couple of naked snake statues, and it was cool making it to the second naked snake statue and getting a picture of him in Osaka. For dinner, I just kind of walked around that area before finding a place to try an Osaka specialty called kushikatsu. It's similar to tempura, but rather than seafood and vegetables, kushikatsu is a variety, including shrimp, but also of meats and like a variety of meats and vegetables. And the batter used for kushikatsu is a little lighter, I suppose, or like it's a different texture than your regular tempura. So it was interesting being able to try it, and it was a very izakaya vibe. I didn't really drink, so I felt a little missing out, but the kushikatsu was pretty good. And it was definitely different from tempura I've had. It was combined with a sauce. Since tempura, I noticed it's generally a thinner sauce. Kushikatsu, it was actually a thicker soy sauce. So it provided a different texture and flavor profile. The next day, I had a free day since I got to Osaka so early and was able to do quite a few things on my list already. So for the second day, it was a little unorthodox, if you will, because I decided to go out to a rather relative detour of a location. I went eastward, away from all of the main, if you will, touristy locations, such as Nipponbashi and Dotonbori and stuff. I went to Moriguchi Station. Moriguchi Station is a special place to me. It's just a seemingly, uninteresting train station, but to me it's important because it is the train station that Canon 2006 takes place in for some of its crucial scenes. Sadly, it was not snowing that day, so I couldn't recreate any of the Canon 2006 shots, but I was able to visit some locations you see, such as the benches where the protagonist sits while waiting for his cousin to come pick him up, and also the clock tower that's there, as well as the little bell thing that we see in the anime. I'll link Mike Hatsu's travel vlog. I used his blog traveling to these locations as a reference to visit on my own, so I'll leave the link in the doodly-doos. But yeah, I tried to recreate the shots one for one, just like in that blog, and just vibe a little bit. Another anime pilgrimage I can mark off the list. But other than that, it's just a train station. Only people who get nostalgic over old anime locations like me would go out. But after that, I left Moriguchi Station and went back west towards Namba and Nishi-Umeda. I went to Nakazaki-cho over to Hugh's Pizza, where I got some really tasty pizza. Hugh's Pizza, it's a little bit of a odd location for those who don't know, but I went there because it was part of Connor, Sea Dog VA's third cyclothon, and he visited it while in Osaka, and it looked good. He recommended it, and I went to go check it out. And I was able to speak briefly with the owner there and just kind of reminisce. And yeah, at this point, the cyclothon was a couple months ago, but it was still cool being able to try it out and ask him for some local recommendations on what to do in Osaka. And he ended up recommending I go to the Tenjin area. Tenjin is like kind of like a shopping street, and I was definitely going to go check it out afterwards. So I got a 4-cheese pizza. I forget the exact name. It eludes me, as well as some garlic knots. Oh, those garlic knots were so good. And the 4-cheese pizza with, or I think it was a 4-cheese pizza, but it was also drizzled with a bit of honey on pizza. I think this opened my mind to a few things. It was a very good pizza, New York style. But yeah, had a slice of pizza and some garlic knots for lunch at Hugh's Pizza. Hugh's Pizza in Osaka, definitely go check it out if you stop by. After that, I essentially walked because I had so much time, and because Japan's such a walkable city. I walked from Hugh's Pizza all the way to the detention area. It was only a 20-minute walk, but I had nothing better to do for that day. So I walked all the way there. And once there, it was essentially just another shopping street. And it was a pretty long shopping street as well. It was essentially 6 separate streets that were attached in a row, like one after the other, and it was like 6 to 8 shopping streets. And I was just walking along it because I had nothing better to do. I did end up getting some okonomiyaki. My first okonomiyaki and only okonomiyaki for this trip. I personally think okonomiyaki is mid. Controversial take, because I just think it's cabbage drowned in sauce, but I was in Osaka, and Osaka is known for it, so I had to try it. It was okay, I guess. We walked along Tenjinbashi, and once I finished around there, just checking out the shops there. I'm not much of a shopper. If you've followed these vlogs, I just kind of browse and take in the vibes and take pictures. I went to Osaka's Shinsekai. Shinsekai Market is a little kind of just old school shopping street as well. Famous for kushikatsu and other isekai-like stuff. It was a little weird, maybe because I was still coming off of New Year's, but a lot of shops were still closed, oddly enough. But there was a little radio tower where I saw people do like a wire walk, kind of like off the edge. That was just a thing. Shinsekai is also the place, if you've seen it on the internet or on Food Network shows back in the mid-2000s, or mid-2000s to 2010s. It's the place where you can catch your own fish in the restaurant, and then depending on the fish you catch, you have to pay for that fish, but then you can have that fish prepared however you want, whether it's sashimi, sushi, deep fried, steamed, etc., etc. Now you can have it done at that restaurant. I believe there were actually 2 restaurants that did that, but I walked past the one with the big boat that I think is most famous for it. I'm sure there's more than one restaurant that does that in Japan, but Shinsekai, I got some pretty scenic photos of the tower there. I wonder if there's an exact name for that tower. The Tsutenkaku. It's famous for its neon lights. This landmark features an observation deck open to the public. It says 1160. There's also a little underground area where they were selling like candies and stuff. I wasn't too sure. But there was an umaibo store. If you don't know what an umaibo is, they're essentially giant Cheetos. They're like 20 yen for one stick, so I was like curious, so I just bought like 5 umaibos. They're like they're like 20 calories, 20 yen. It's a giant Cheeto, flavored Cheeto, but they had a lot of flavors and I wanted to try it out, so I bought a bunch. The giant Pretz was in one of those underground stores. You're supposed to stand in the Pretz box and take a picture, but it's a little hard to do when you're alone. Afterwards, because I was like bored, I suppose, I went back to Denton Town and I saw a restaurant that I was actually eyeing for a little bit yesterday, but I ended up going to since I got the kushikatsu. It was a maid cafe in the Denton Town. Now, of course, they were your at-homes and your maid's dreamings in Denton Town. But this one, it caught my eye because it was like, it seemed more popular, if you will. But also, like, it wasn't like a chain. It wasn't a chain maid cafe. It was called E-Maid. I'm not sure what they seem like your regular maid cafe, but it seemed like their food portions were decent. And it seemed like their food portions were decent, and I was curious to check it out. So I went in. This was my dinner essentially. It was a standard maid cafe, people got their checkies, there wasn't too much moe fare, maybe because I'm a filthy gaijin, but I saw people like asking for checkies with the maids and stuff. There was actually a bit of a wait when I got there. I ended up getting a gratin, also called a doria in Japan, which confuses me, and it was a variety of different foods, and it was pretty tasty, like for maid cafe standards especially, I found. It even came with a fancy lemon dessert. I forget. I think it was like a lemon gelato or something. And yeah, for like 2,000 yen, I was really surprised by the quality and the portion size of the food. After that, I called it early, went back to my appa. The next day, I was taking a little bit of a day trip because it was finally time to begin my fate pilgrimage to Kobe, Japan. Now, I was very looking forward to this trip because the Fate and Type Moon series has become a big part of my anime nerddom, if you will, since COVID. And since getting into that series, so being able to go to the place where the Fate's Day Night takes place was really exciting to me. And you could hit all of the main locations in one day, essentially. Aside from a few, which I hit, like in Yokohama, going to the Ryudo Temple equivalent. But having gotten there, the first thing I did was take the relatively short train ride from Osaka over to Kobe, heading west. It wasn't too bad, and arguably, if you have a JR rail pass, you can take the Shinkansen, and it's like 15 minutes, which is kind of insane to go to like another city, essentially. Once there, the first picture I got was the row up the hill over from. It's one of the shots in the visual novel where it's like the road up to one of the protagonist's house, essentially, or is it a road up to the church? I don't remember. But Kobe is a port city, essentially, in Osaka Bay. And there's a lot of different influences there. And I arrived in Sannomiya Station. And from there, I more or less just walked everywhere. Because all I need, I was able to hit every major location starting from Sannomiya Station. If you take the Shinkansen, you would arrive at Shin-Kobe, so you could hit other locations. But I was up early in the morning and I was ready to explore. So the first place I went to, walking up this road over to Kobe's western district, if you will. Since Kobe's, for a brief summary, Kobe has like your regular Japanese style, and then there was a foreigners district, essentially, where all the foreigners live with their fancy foreign houses. I walked over to that area. It is called Kitano-cho Road, or the road to the foreigner district, and the first place I went to was the Weathercock House. It's also the house that Rin Tosaka's house is based off of. Now, it seems that there is a VR tour you're allowed to, that you can do, but we weren't actually able to go into the house, which was a little disappointing. My research prior stated that it was 500 yen to go in and actually explore the house, but I got plenty of shots of the outside, which, good enough for me, able to recreate the shots from the visual novel and show. And this spot also gave a really good view of the surrounding Kobe area as well, since it was at the top of a hill, and man, was that walk tough. Like, it was a pretty steep hill. Now the next place, and this, to preface, this entire foreigners district is essentially a conglomeration of different historical sites now. I found this out the hard way, because the next place I wanted to go to was the Uroko House, or Sakura Mato's house, essentially, or what it's based off of in Fate's Day Night. Now, arriving at Uroko House, I discovered that, hey, you're not actually allowed to go in without a pass. And the pass was like $30, or 3,000 yen. Of course, this 3,000 yen let you go to all of the other historic Western houses in this area, but it kind of pissed me off that if I wanted to get into just one place, I had to pay for all of them, and for 3,000 yen, which was more expensive than any other kind of touristy place I've been to so far. Like, all of the castles, they're like under 1,000 yen in my experience. So, yeah, I was a little disappointed. I tried my best to take pictures of the house from the outside, but I wasn't able to do much, so I walked back down the hill and just explored the rest of Kitano-cho. It seems while there was it was like very Western inspired. There was like a Sherlock fan club place. I don't know how to describe it, but I ended up taking the long trek back down. And by long, I mean quite a long trek back down, and then walked east all the way over to the Kobe Nunobiki Herb Gardens and Ropeway. This is the famous Kobe Ropeway that Chris Broad loves, but much to the chagrin of Connor. And it is essentially a ropeway up to a very pretty rose garden and herb garden. You can pay once for the ropeway up, and then you can pay extra if you want to take it back down. You can also opt to not pay anything at all and just walk it. I wasn't insane enough, so I paid to take the ropeway up, get some scenic views of the ropeway, and it gives you a pretty good view of Kobe, so I will give Chris Broad that one. It was cool seeing where the trees start and the city, where the trees start and end and the city begins. Kind of indicative of how Japan is. There's a lot of greenery juxtaposed by pretty densely packed city. Taking the ropeway all the way up, it was a very nice rose garden. There was a little cafe there selling their expensive cafe food, but yeah, it was winter, so not everyone was in full bloom, but it was still quite scenic. Check the area. They explained some history, some herbs place, a lot of kind of greenhouses and just explaining different herbs. But the real attraction was that essentially the entire walk down this herb and rose garden, down back to the bottom of the hill, was just all different patches of plants and stuff that are being grown, and they have pretty in-depth descriptions explaining different species, and they have greenhouses, and it's a very good hiking location, honestly. If you're not a super avid hiker, I think it was I'm not, and I was able to do it. Yeah. It was pretty and a good date spot, I'll say. Not that I'm on a date or anything. There was also a bell thing. I think you're supposed to ring as a couple. Yeah, not for me. But I was able to take a stroll down. You can see in the pictures how they have all these kind of herbs grown, and seeing all these spots as I took the ropeway up and now walking back down. It gave me perspective on how far I had traveled and how much more I had to go. But this entire area was very scenic, honestly. You could honestly spend a day here, bring your kids, just, relax. They have a lot of kind of what do you call it? The mat, the things you hang on trees and then you lie down on. I forget what they're called. They had a couple of those set up, and some kids were running about and whatnot. Some of the hills are a little steeper though, so I found myself unintentionally sprinting them down. Eventually I made it past all the greenery, and the path splits. You can either take the direct way down or you can take the scenic route, which ends up being a hike through the forest. I had time, so I took the scenic route. There was a little waterfall, multiple waterfalls actually, and just general hiking vibes. Good times. Be careful though, some of the hiking paths are a little steep. But after that, I was in a bit of a rush, so I had to be pretty quick and make my way back from Shinkobe, essentially Shinkobe Station. I was just taking my time, really. It was around 1 or 2 at this point, having finished all my rose garden business. I grabbed lunch at a local Nakao, which is similar to your Sukiyas and Nishinoyas and Yoshinoyas and whatnot. But instead of beef bowl, it was just general Japanese food. I ended up getting an oyakudon or whatever. It was dirt cheap, 500 yen or less, and quite filling. So try Nakao if you ever go to Japan. It's your solid 3 out of 5. Can't go wrong. It's like McDonald's on crack. I speed walked from Shinkobe all the way to Sanomiya Station so that I could take the train over to the little man-made island of Kobe Port Island. That's literally what it's called. Now you might be asking, why would I go out of my way to go to Kobe Port Island, and if you're not even going to Kobe Airport, which is on the same line? It is because I wanted to go to the Kobe Port Island Kita Park. This area, it gives you a fantastic view of the Great Kobe Bridge, the giant red bridge that you surely have seen in many an anime. And I was able to recreate, with lighting, very good lighting, thankfully, the area of the Port Kita Park as shown in the Fate series, including a beautiful shot of the beach, of the bridge. And I was very, very happy with how it turned out going on this trip, and going to being able to go to this iconic bridge that we have seen so much in anime and manga. And I had to do it. I had to roll the gacha, so I booted up Fate Grand Order, and it was the anniversary, so there was still the guaranteed 5-star roll, and to preface, you get one guaranteed 5-star in a 11 card pulls, for layman's terms. Now normally it is a 0.8% chance of getting one of the 5 stars on a banner. So I got my guaranteed one. I got my guaranteed Archer Moriarty. And I was content. I paid my money for this guaranteed 5-star, but location catalysts are real. I went to the origin of the Fate series, and I ended up getting Artoria Pendragon as another character. This is just me gushing about Fate Ghost, so please please skip ahead if you're not interested. But I was able to get 2 5-stars in at this location, so I frankly lost it. I lost my shit. But yeah, exploring the Port Kita Park. It was a small park. You get to see the Kobe Bridge. There weren't really any kids, really. There were some people just kept playing music, I guess, like casually for fun with friends. So that was a little bit of ambience, which was nice. And like a couple of like monuments as well that I was able to see. This is an area where one of the characters goes fishing in the visual novel, and it was kind of funny seeing people also fishing here in real life. And I was like, damn, art mirrors reality, truly. But it was such a cool place. It was so beautiful. The sun was setting, and it couldn't have been more perfect, I think. And of course, since I had no time left over, I decided to walk back across rather than taking the train, walking across the Kobe Bridge all the way back to the central land area of Kobe. And this was the spot where Artoria and Shiro decide to work together. Good times, good times. But afterwards, having walked back across to the main part of Kobe, I walked over to the Minato no Mori Memorial Park, which is it's just a park, but it is also an area. I believe it was just a cool park, really. It was quite big and close, and it was close by. There was like a rose clock on the way as well. And I was just exploring the area, took a picture of that, and I found a weird bit of Canadian lore. I found a totem pole, of all things, apparently made in collaboration, I believe, with some Canadian indigenous people. I don't remember exactly, I apologize for that, but it was weird seeing weird Canadian lore in Osaka, of all places. After that, another thing Kobe is known for is their Chinatown. So, naturally, having been to the Yokohama Chinatown, I had to go check out the one in Kobe. So, yeah, I went to check it out, and I will say it is much smaller than the Yokohama Chinatown I found. It was like 1 block instead of 2, I suppose, but I got to try all the corners. As I've noticed, it's definitely more like mainlander Chinese than like South Chinese or Hong Kong influence, which is a trend I've noticed in Japan, really. You don't really find much Hong Kong influence or like Hong Kong style food. Traveling there, I got some some deep fried sesame balls, just took some pictures, and ended up just finding another Motomachi shopping district, not to be confused with the one in Yokohama. Yeah. And for dinner, decided to try the famous Kobe beef. by going to Kobe Plaisir, which is a teppanyaki restaurant, which is truly the only way to truly enjoy Kobe beef. I got for, I believe it was like 100, might have been 100, 120, maybe 150, 1,000 yen, so $150 or less, something like that. But you get your Kobe beef and it's a set meal. I think it was 100-ish. I don't remember exactly. 100 Canadian dollars. But it was a multi-course meal with your appetizers, your soups. I got a mocktail, and it was a fancy experience. I felt a little underdressed, but I tried my best. I wasn't dressing to impress. I was dressing for just for comfort, really. At this fancy restaurant with the soup. Funny enough, the chef that was preparing dinner for me, since it's a teppanyaki restaurant, it's a little more personal, and you're able to chat with the chef a bit. He actually also lived in Canada as well, within the same city where I live in. So that was pretty funny. We were able to chat and see where he, like how it was and what he liked about Toronto and stuff. But it was a multi-course meal, very delicious. And the steak, it seems like it's a very small portion here, but this is only half of the actual serving. And it was Kobe beef, so very high fat to meat content. And it melts in your mouth, but you really can't eat too much of it or, well, you'll feel quite full. And they led you to a separate room for you to enjoy dessert, enjoy your drink, and it was nice. This was the one expensive fancy meal I allowed myself for this trip, so it was worth it. I was more than happy to spend it on something expensive. Now, the next day, and this was a pure coincidence in every aspect, I was taking the train over to another location when I caught that there was a Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai exhibition that was occurring in Kyoto. Now, coincidentally, I was also going to Kyoto within the next few days, so I had to check it out. Another one of my favorite, truly favorite series, one that I have purchased every visual novel, or every light novel I can for, is the Rascal Does Not Dream of series. And ever since the anime in 2017, this show changed me, truly. So, being able to catch something so serendipitous in Kyoto was, I had to. I found it a little odd, though, since the show takes place in Fujisawa and Yokohama, and having been there, I didn't see any of this, so that was a little surprising, but I took a picture of it. At this point, I'd returned to Osaka since it was a day trip in Kobe, but on the next day, I went from Osaka past Kobe, as I was heading to... I was thoroughly drenched, but I pushed on. I went to Akashi Station, correction. The first thing I wanted to check out was the Oda House Nagayaimon, however you pronounce it, very close to Akashi Park. The reason why? It's just a wall, but it's not just any wall to an anime fan. It is what the entrance of the Emiya household is based off of from Fate Stay Night. It's just a wall, nothing interesting, but I had to go even if it was raining awfully. Afterwards, I went to Akashi Park. And the adjoined castle ruins. Now, if it wasn't raining horribly, I'm sure this would have been a lovely trip, but not gonna lie, I was a little sad that it was raining so hard because it kind of ruined my enjoyment worrying about getting trench foot. But I was able to go to the nearby archery dojo, which also shows up in the Fate series, and actually take a picture of the actual archery dojo. So that was really exciting for me. The true destination, or the final destination I was hoping to go to today, was Himeji Castle. Now, Himeji Castle, what is there more to say except that it is one of the most famous castles and World Heritage sites in Japan. So, I got many shots there. There was also a park at the bottom, but I did not feel like exploring it because I was so wet. Because I was drenched at this point. It was still raining. I had an umbrella. It was not helping. But there was a small entrance fee. I think it was 1,000 yen maybe. To go in and explore all the levels of Himeji Castle. You get full access. And it was pretty cool. You had to take off your shoes and switch to slippers when you went in, just to preserve the wood in there, I believe, since it's been repaired, but it's still old wood, I suppose. And it's like 7 or 8 levels of pretty steep stairs, and it's essentially like just a walkthrough. You can't explore too much. But it was really cool seeing this historic site for myself. They had some dummy flintlocks to show you what the Himeji Castle was, and it was like a storehouse essentially for weapons and stuff. They had like a couple of video exhibits as well, so it was like half museum, half castle. And they had Miyamoto Musashi advertisements, or Miyamoto Musashi things, and the lore about him, as well as lore on the castle, its construction, and the surrounding areas. After my exploration of Himeji Castle, I decided to head to the nearby restaurants there and just got like I believe it was like a small teishoku eel set. It was like 2,000 yen, and I was hungry and freezing, so I would take anything I could get. I ended up calling it early. I was going to explore Mount Shosha, which is like another hiking trail in Himeji, but it was still raining at this point, and I was worried I was going to get sick, so I decided to just call it a day and go back to the hotel and take a shower and rest. The next day, it was officially time to go to Kyoto, every tourist's favorite location. Honestly, having been to Kyoto now, I think it's kind of overrated. The first place I went to was temples, as you do. There were temples, as you can see in the pictures. Temples, many temples, Buddhist temples, Shinto temples. At this point, I've seen a lot of temples in Japan, and not just in Kyoto, but in many places of Japan. Perhaps I've been burnt out on temples. But I was also able to check out I walked over to Gion, which is the entertainment district. I think I got there too early because there was nothing open. I was very confused. Or not Gion, but I went to an entertainment district. Gion itself was very busy. Gion is the most popular tourist place with your expensive tourist traps, matcha, Mont Blancs, you know the drill. But with nothing better to do, Kyoto was a little underwhelming for me at this point. I made it from Kyoto all the way to the Daimaru, where the Bunny Girl Senpai exhibit was held. And it was maybe 1,000 yen, but it was a very cool exhibit I was able to check out. And it essentially recapped the first season of the anime, or the first 7 volumes of the light novel. And honestly, for an exhibit, it was actually pretty, and not necessarily interactive, but a lot more immersive than you might think. They recreate the Enoden line, famous in the show, and one I've actually rode multiple times in Fujisawa. They recreate the classroom in Bunny Girl Senpai. And the first example of the exhibit is My Son. For those who don't know, the first arc of Bunny Girl Senpai revolves around Mai Sakurajima, famous actress in the anime, suddenly disappearing from the view of other people. And to replicate that, they had the exhibit where you can't see the character as well. They intentionally blur her information. However, if you stand in a specific spot where the projection is, then you can see her on the wall. And I thought this was a very simple, neat way of kind of showing or capturing the feel of this first arc. And then later on, they give you kind of character art, sketches, information, lore. My Japanese wasn't good enough for me to read it all, but I understood, and I followed the series intensely. As you can see here, they recreated the shot of her sitting and Sakate eating lunch with her. God, I wish that was me right now. God. Next was Koga Tomoe, where they show you the little desk she hides under in the show. And this is the time loop arc of the show, where our protagonist gets stuck in a 1 month time loop with his cheeky kohai. And they show that by essentially showing every frame that gets recreated in the time loop. Next is Futaba, the third arc, with focusing on the protagonist's best buddy. And they recreate her lab, and they also, oddly, I swear, those speakers they used were super focused or whatever, because you could only hear them. You can only hear the sound if you stand in a very specific spot, and then the speakers blast right into your ears and it's super clear. But if you move even a little bit, you can't hear it, which I found really immersive. But they recreated the science lab. Next was Nodoka, the fourth arc, Sakurajima's half-sister. And her arc is revolving around her struggle with her identity, living in the shadow of her famous older sister. And they even made like a idol-style bouquet, which I found pretty funny. And the fifth arc, focusing on Kaide, the protagonist's sister, and her struggles with social anxiety. And I was trying not to cry because they essentially recreated her journal that she writes of the goals she wants to accomplish before she disappears. And they kind of recreated her room in that sense, and they even got the little zoo season pass that she and Sakata end up getting, and they recreated that as well. So it was honestly a love letter to anyone who watched the show. They recreated the bathtub scene where Sakata, in his despair-driven stupor of losing his little sister, that he had essentially raised like a parent for the past 2-3 years. He was talking with his first love beyond the thin wall of a shower door, because it lets you talk a little easier when it's such a small degree of separation, I suppose. Moving on to the sixth and seventh arc, and the final arc of season 1, if you will, of Bunny Girl Senpai, about Makinohara Shoko and her movie, and just, I'm getting chills talking about this series and looking back on these photos. Her arc and her struggle with finding the will to live given her prognosis, and you can see this photo here. Makinohara Shoko's 3 favorite words are arigato, ganbatta ne, daisuki. Those are her 3 favorite words, or 3 favorite phrases. So, yeah, they captured that, and I think my favorite part was for the Makinohara Shoko part. It was hard to take a picture here, but they recreated the beach scene. Having been to the Shichirugama beach and seeing it recreated here, the sand does not look that clean in real life, but essentially they had 2 spots where you could stand, and it would play the speech that Makinohara gives Sakata when he's younger and he's struggling with dealing with his sister's problem of bullying and his own struggles with adolescence syndrome. And you get to stand or sit in either position, and you get to kind of live the moment that happens in that anime. And that's what I think was so cool about this exhibit located in a shopping mall. It was able to let people kind of really live in their favorite anime and kind of step into the shoes of Sakata for a bit and just kind of relive this, at this point, 7, Christ, it would have been 7 approaching 8 years since this anime. And I believe at this point we were approaching 10 or 11 years since the original light novels were released in Japan in, I believe, 2014. And also a kind of celebration of the series, since at this point the series had ended, if the series was ending very soon, at volume 14 or 15. And it was also recently announced that they were adapting the next 7 or 8 volumes of the light novel, which would be the second season and the end of the series. Sure, there's going to be a couple more movies, of course, because that's how this thing goes. Volume 8 was a movie adaptation Volume 8 was a movie adaptation after all, for a singular book rather than an anime. But they also talked about that showed that in this exhibit as well, focusing on Osaka wa Kaede, Sakata's old little sister, for lack of spoilers, if you will. They were able to recreate some of the scenes that show up in Volume 8 and the movie, such as her applying to go to an online school rather than going in person and getting all that information, making a little set for that. In hindsight, it was a kind of simple exhibit, but I don't think it being super fancy and completely recreating every set was necessary, since Bunny Girl Senpai, even though it may seem like a very fantastical show with its adolescence, magical reality shenanigans, it's still a series, in my opinion, very grounded in reality and dealing with concepts like, of course they use quantum mechanics to explain this, but instead kind of using that to expand on topics such as topics of, identity and reading the room and just kind of fitting in and growing up as a high schooler and into being a young adult in college, especially with the second arc pivoting to that, with Sakata actually going to college and following along in his college years, helping other people. And they of course had a little exhibit for the cocky bastard that is Sakata Asagawa. And they provide a map showing you all the locations that occur in Bunny Girl Senpai, and I've been to some of those locations, so it's really cool. They had some of the original material used for the anime production, such as I believe these are sketches, but also the lines, more sketches and keyframes, the girls, and finally advertising for the second season to be airing in 2025, and teasers of a certain knapsack kid, shall we call it. And of course, at the end, it wouldn't be an exhibit without exclusive merch. Exclusive merch. They had a very beautiful portrait of Mai Sakurajima in this very kind of watercolory style. It was very expensive, but they also had smaller scale versions as well, and posters. I ended up, you can't really see it, but I ended up getting one of the sweaters. It was a very nice sweater, about 6,000 yen. So standard fare for any, it was long sleeves sweater, so standard fare for any, kind of these tie-in kind of things, as well as a 500 yen kind of booklet with this art piece, you can see here. But also, inside, it's like a commentary about the show, and just from Kamoshida Sensei, about the series and the characters and stuff. I can't read it fully, but just for the artwork alone, I was pretty happy. And of course, after buying it there, they also give you a little kind of sticker card, a gotcha sticker card for actually attending. So overall, very worth it going to this exhibit. I was very happy that I found it in Kyoto. After that, I went to my biggest mistake, Ichiran Ramen. I definitely regretted it. It was not worth it for the price. I have had much better ramen locations. After that, I decided to walk to the Imperial Palace. Very big place, having never been there. Walked around. It's very open. It was very quiet, oddly enough. No tourists, so that was nice. Found a weird duck. Walked all the way to Philosopher's Path. I can't even describe what Philosopher's Path is. This was just a tourist attraction you're supposed to go in April or May when the cherry blossoms are blooming, and then it's a very beautiful place to walk. It was not April or May, so it was just kind of dead. I'll be honest. But I had time to kill in Kyoto. Ended up getting another, Evangelion burger. Because I found it really tasty. Found everyone's favorite Pokemons. Because, they're expensive. And it was, before I knew it, I had returned from Kyoto. I had planned on going to Nara, but at this point it was quite late, and Nara didn't seem very feasible, and the deer, they kind of go home. Nara's overrated anyways from what I've heard, so I wasn't too miffed about it. So I went back to Osaka, went to bed, because next day was going to be probably the main reason why my entire trip got delayed all the way into the new year. And that was because I was going to the Nintendo Museum. Yay! Now, the Nintendo Museum, for those who don't know, requires a 3-month advanced lottery to get in. I was lucky enough to get in since it was a weekday, but the fact that you have to wait 3 months in advance to apply for a lottery, for a chance to get into the Nintendo Museum, was a little annoying. Having made it into the museum, though, the museum is structured in 2 levels. The first level is a interactive area for some kind of cool games and stuff where you can try old Nintendo products, as well as a gift shop, which I should have went to first because I was a fool. And the second level, which has a comprehensive history of Nintendo. The entrance, you have Miyamoto and his signed signature on the left wall, along with some toads that greet you if you smack their heads. They had a very cool wall showing basically every first-party Nintendo character, even down to Shulk, baby. Yeah, Shulk's he's a first-party character. So it was really cool seeing all the Nintendo IPs on a wall. Sadly, no photos or video were allowed on the second floor of the Nintendo Museum, so respecting that, I won't show anything, nor did I take any pictures, but it essentially went through the comprehensive history of every video game console Nintendo worked on, as well as more niche things like their arcade cabinets, their Hanafuda cards, toys, stuff like that, and it had it all on display. So it was, as a former video game wannabe historian who looked into this kind of stuff growing up, it was kind of a dream come true seeing all these cool gadgets and gizmos and seeing it in one place. It was very nostalgic, if you will, seeing things that I grew up with, watching old trailers for video games like Wind Waker and stuff. It was pretty magical. But making it back down to the first floor, there's 8 or 9 different activities, and you have 10 coins loaded on your little IC card they give you when you visit the museum, and each activity costs coins. First thing I checked out was the emulator station, for lack of a better word, where you can go play some old Nintendo games from an emulated catalog. Now, you only get 5 to 7 minutes with a game. This includes boot times and whatnot, so demo times were strict. But Ocarina of Time is available, so I wrote about this on Twitter, but I wonder, can anyone speedrun Ocarina of Time at the Nintendo Museum? You have 7 minutes, so that's well better than world record pace, right? For any percent? I am curious. But they also had kind of a shooting mini game, as well as one where you can try using the Nintendo's patent pending extendo grabber thingy. That was actually kind of hard to figure out. And they had a Game & Watch Shadow game. But yeah, pretty interactive. Good for kids, I'd say. So, of course, the museum itself is definitely catered more towards an older audience, because, the museum might be a little boring for younger kids. But the actual interactive parts, I think they're pretty good for kids. So, definitely worth checking it out. And it's not that big either. It's a two-story museum. It's not like going to a USJ and going to the Nintendo World there and waiting like a bajillion hours. A place that was originally on my itinerary, but I cut out because I was going to the Nintendo Museum. I think I prefer it too, because I'm not too much of a fan of theme parks, mainly the waiting around part and overpaying, so yeah, the Nintendo Museum for an adult was, I think, definitely worth it. Here I got a better shot of the wall with every video game character from Nintendo, I swear. But attached there also is a little hamburger cafe, if you will. It's definitely catered towards kids because you can assemble your own hamburger, but man, were the prices expensive. So I just got the kids meal. No shame in that. It's like some fried potato balls. A very, very average hamburger. It was literally bun, burger, ketchup, and a juice box. And I ended up getting like a mushroom cake for 500 yen, which was not worth it. But it was fun. It was fun. You can see the little flagpole at the Nintendo Museum. And yeah. After that, I was in Kyoto, so nothing else to do. With that, my trip to Kyoto was over. Now, you might think, this is the end, right? You went home? Not quite. I still had a couple of days left. So of course, I took the flight back from Osaka, back to Narita Airport in Chiba, and back to everyone's favorite Akihabara, yay! I didn't really do much for the next few days. It was just kind of relaxing, soaking in the last bit of Akiba vibes before I left. Went to Ikebukuro, picked up some last minute gifts. Oddly enough, in Ikebukuro, there's a Pomni, or like Amazing Digital Circus pop-up store with some Pomni merch. So I was like, sure, why not? Check it out. I was just exploring Tokyo, soaking in the last bit of time I had left in the city. Went to the Fan Gamer store in Shibuya because I wanted to pick up some gifts, and Undertale. They sell, for those curious, the Fan Gamer store in the Shibuya 109. I think it was the Shibuya one. No, it's at a Gigo, in a fan gamer in a Gigo arcade. They sell the Sans Undertale hoodie, for those curious. Went to an IKEA, had some IKEA dessert. I had some IKEA hot dogs. I was craving an IKEA hot dog. And and they have a very nice IKEA sundae, which I wish they would bring to Canada. Please, I want that IKEA sundae. It's so cheap and so good. Went around Akiba for a bit. Had some Indian food, because why the hell not? And then the next day, after coming back to Akihabara, I decided to go to Fruit de Saison, which is a specialty parfait store in Akihabara. I was feeling fancy that day. That's literally about it. Got a very fancy parfait. Yes, grown men can eat parfaits. Look at Dante. He eats strawberry sundaes all the time. Their parfaits were very fancy and definitely Instagram vibes, but man, are parfaits expensive. Like, surprisingly expensive. I also ended up getting another parfait later at Milish, since they were having a collaboration event with a local radio show, or an online radio show, I believe. I was just curious, really. After that, I ended up going to Coco's for dinner. Coco's is another one of the family restaurants. I got a salad and a Hamburg steak, tin-full Hamburg steak with potato. It was pretty tasty. So Coco's, I think, is pretty good if you're curious in the whole family restaurant battle in Japan. The next day, I went to Tsukiji Market. Yeah, guys, Tsukiji Market, not Tsukiji Market. It's fine. It wasn't that good. I didn't feel like it wasn't great. I got the funny 200 yen tamagoyaki that went viral on TikTok. It was fine. I got a rice bowl, like a sashimi rice bowl. It was fine. Not worth the money. I ended up going out of my way because I was bored out of my mind at Tsukiji, going all the way east, essentially, over to Mengokoro Kunimoto. Mengokoro Kunimoto is a little out of the way in Tokyo, east side of Tokyo, over past the Naka River, east of the Naka River in the Keisei Takasako Station. It's just a little ramen restaurant, down to earth, with sukumen as one of their specialties. You might be wondering, why did you go here of all places? Well, it was because actually, it was in a life where I'm from video, what it's like to own a ramen shop, and I went to it in 2023, on my 2023 trip, so I wanted to go again in 2024, and it was delicious as usual. It's out of the way, of course, but it was worth it. It was during lunch rush, so it was very busy, but I'm eating beside the salaryman as usual for ramen. It's a vibe, but yeah, it's just a local mom and pop kind of ramen store run by like a couple of people, and yeah, hardworking, and I respect the grind set. It was very tasty sukumen. I went to Milish, and they showed me their funny book. I found a stupid funny cat. God, I hate that cat. Stupid cat. There was a Nekopara pop-up at the Basset Gallery in Akiba. And yeah, I spent the last day meeting up with a new friend to just check out, to show them around Akiba since I had spent so much time there. It was essentially my last day in Akihabara, so I wanted to, capture some memories of Akiba. We ended up going to Ochanomizu Station because around there is actually one of the shots that appear in the Suzume anime, if anyone's seen it, where she Suzume, it's a Makoto Shinkai film where she's like chasing after a demon and jumps off the bridge or something. There was sadly construction there, so the shot wasn't amazing, but yeah. We had some ramen for dinner. We got some box toast at the Paseo Resorts, had some karaoke fun. I ended up spending the night over at the one of the famous fighting game arcades in Akiba. I believe it's the Hei Entertainment Yard. But yeah, that concludes my Japan trip. I flew home the next day. Yeah, overall, 1 month in Japan, doable. Even if you don't know the language, try your best to learn a little bit of Japanese. It's appreciated, and in my experience, I find being able to at least say you understand Japanese, even if it's you don't understand all the words, knowing a little bit, it definitely helps some of the employees and the mates communicate with you, in my opinion. It's better to lead with Japanese than try to communicate in English, but that's just my opinion. I'd rather bumble my way trying to understand the Japanese than to have to subject the mates to speaking English. But overall, man, I love Japan. I miss it every day. I want to go back so bad. Of course, this is me speaking as a filthy tourist, but I don't know. Being in Japan for so long, for a month, this is the longest I've been abroad alone. Seeing the world and seeing sides of Japan that you might not normally see as just a regular tourist, in Tokyo or even in Osaka. It was definitely cool seeing the world, seeing different sides of Japan, and just really, soaking it in, taking it slower for once, even though I was still in a pretty fast pace. But yeah, I hope to those who watch this vlog that they're inspired by it and they make their own trips to Japan and do their own anime pilgrimages. There are plenty of resources online that you can check out. And next time, for me at least, I want to go north and check out more northern places like Hokkaido or Sapporo or even just Aomori, a little north of Japan, of Tokyo. Maybe even go to Okinawa finally, because I was supposed to go on this trip, but life doesn't plan out that way. But until I go to Japan again, I suppose that'll have to wait. Hopefully you'll join me next time for the next ASMR video. And with that, good evening, good afternoon, and good night.